In this video tutorial, I'm going to show you how to add an article div into your main content area and how to insert an inline image and wrap text around it. So I'm going to add a div inside this main content area, and I've got the cursor blinking here where I'm going to insert the div. So I click on Insert and I'm going to choose Article. I'm going to choose, rather than inserting an insertion point, I'm going to click, this time I'm going to say after start of tag. And I'm going to insert it after the start of the main tag because that's the div that we want to put this article into. And then I'm going to call it, I'll just call it Article 1 so we can number our various articles. Click OK. And there it is. So it's nested inside the div, but it's not positioned the way that I want it to be positioned. So in order for me to do that, I'm going to need to create a rule for it. So I'm going to click on CSS Designer, and with it still selected, I'm going to click on Add a New Rule. And you can see it creates a main Article 1 rule here. So this is a contextual div that's being inserted in there. And I'm going to click Return and go ahead and add a rule to this. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set the width of this article to about 250 pixels wide. I'll leave the height set to auto. So I'm going to add some padding here because I don't want the text to go all the way up against the wall of the div. So to do that, I'm going to enter in 3 here, and then if I click this little icon, I can change all of the properties to 3. So you can see here even now that there's some padding added to this div. Next thing I want to do is I'm going to use a float rule. So this is the first time that we're adding a float rule to a div. And what I want to do is I want to float this to the right of the main content area. So I click on that. You can see it disappears here. I may want to move the code over a little bit just so you can see what's going on. There we go. Go back to my designer. So we've got it floating right. And then the other thing I want to do is I want to add some border to it. And if I go to this properties area, I get the border tool here. I'm going to add 1 pixel. Style is going to be solid, and I'm going to make the border color. I think I'll use the color picker here and make the border this blue. So hopefully that stands out a little bit. So we've got a 1 pixel border around our article. Then what I want to do is actually go ahead and add some content. So I'm going to, inside this article, I'm going to say Australia Day is celebrated on January 26th. And I'm going to, because I can't come up with the rest of it, I'm going to add some placeholder text. Just grab that from here until I can finish adding the content to the div. So here's what I have so far on my div. And so the other thing I want to do is I want to add an image in here, an inline image to go along with this story. So I'm going to position the cursor where I want to add the image, and I'm going to go Insert and Image. It's actually the second from the top. Choose Image. Now the image, I forgot to put it into my images folder, but that's okay. Dreamweaver can take care of this for me. I'm going to go to the desktop, choose this image of the old boxing kangaroo, so Boxroo GIF, click open, and Dreamweaver says the file's outside of the root folder. Do you want to move it to the root folder? And yes, we do. In fact, you have to do this because if you don't do this, your image will not show up on your website when you upload it. It has to be in the root folder in order for it to get uploaded with all your resource files. So yes, where do we want to put it? Into the images folder. That's where it needs to be. Click OK. So there's my boxing kangaroo, and everything looks great. The background image on that is it's got background transparent, but I want to wrap the text around this. And to do that, I need to create what's called a class rule. We haven't done that yet, so I'm going to go to the CSS design panel again, CSS designer. We're going to create a new rule, only this time we're going to override what it wants to do here. I'm going to add a period which indicates a class rule, and I'm going to call it image underscore right. So any image that I want to float to the right of an article, from now on I can use this class rule to take care of that, hopefully. Click enter, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to layout, scroll down to float, click right float, and I think I'm also going to add some padding around these images. So I might add 2 pixels of padding around any image that uses this class rule. And let's see how that looks. So I'm going to close the CSS design panel. Now it didn't do anything to the image because we haven't applied the class rule to the image yet. We just created the class rule. To apply the class rule to the image, we make sure the image is selected, like so. We go to the class pull-down menu, which is in the Property Inspector panel down here. And you can see it's right there, image right. We click on that. Sure enough, it pops over to the right. The text wraps around it. And we've got an inline image here with our Australia Day story. We probably want to have a nice heading here, which we'll do in a little bit. But the last thing I want to do is I want to, once again, get rid of this rectangular shape for the actual article div. So I'm going to add one more rule, and that is a border radius rule for the main article. The article rule. So I scroll down to border radius, and I'm going to go in here and I'm going to just make it 10 pixels all the way around. And close this, and let's preview this, see how it looks. I can do that in live view. And you can see there's my little article. And looking pretty good. But just to be safe, I'm going to preview it in the browser, Safari. Save the index page, save the styles, opens it up, and there it is. There's my little Australia Day article in my page. So the border is not bad. I probably need to add a little bit more padding, but I do like the kangaroo a lot. We're starting to see our page taking shape here. And in the next tutorial, we're going to add a menu.